Senator Menendez of New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Estevez, the President, as candidate, promised that he would return the jurisdiction of the export licensing of semi-automatic weapons from the Commerce Department back to the Department of State, from which President Trump took it. The President can do this by simple regulation without the need for legislative approval. But until that happens, the Department is providing no information to Congress as to what lethal weapons, including sniper rifles, assault rifles, and others, are being sold to what countries or foreign persons, in what quantities, and under what conditions. What is the status, to your knowledge, of the implementation of the President's promise?
Thank you for that, Senator Menendez. I can't speak to the President's promise, so you probably have access to the President more than I do. But I will say that it's important to aggressively use export controls to control gun exports, and I certainly am prepared to work with the committee on the oversight of that.
Well, if you take my word that that was the President's promise during his campaign, do you support that promise?
I will work with the administration on that, Senator.
So meaning that if they, in fact, are going to...
That is the direction that the President wants to go, I will certainly support.
Until the President's promise is implemented, will you commit to provide to the committees of jurisdiction over arms sales specific information about what semi-automatic weapon sales are being considered for export, including the foreign recipient numbers of weapons, conditions, and end-use monitoring measures, if confirmed?
Senator, since I'm not in BIS, I can't give you the details on what those rules exactly are. I do commit to working with you and your staff.
I'm talking about information. I'm not talking about some classified set of circumstances. Surely the United States government, who funds the department that you are going to be part of and who funds the process of exporting weapons, should be able to know who you're exporting to.
Senator, I am certainly prepared to provide the committee the information that is due this committee regarding exports.
Mr. Steele, our financial industry has a diversity problem, especially at the highest levels. The proportion of minorities in financial services drops by 75% from entry level to the C-suites. At the highest level, 90% of the C-suite is white. Women of color make up only 2% of executives, despite being 21% of the entire level workforce. It's not an optics problem that I'm talking about. A lack of diversity leads to real issues in our financial system. In 2019, the National Bureau of Economic Research found that black mortgage borrowers were charged higher interest rates than white borrowers. That might sound familiar, since between 2004 and 2009, in the run-up to the financial crisis, black and Latino borrowers with good credit scores were 3 times as likely as similarly situated white borrowers to have higher rate mortgages. So Secretary Yellen has previously testified here that if economists are mainly of one gender or race, they are likely to miss things that matter. Do you believe that same holds true for bank executives?
Well, absolutely, Senator, and thank you for the question. And I know you've been a leader on this issue on the committee. I would say absolutely that lived experience is extremely important for people, policymakers in the public sector, for bankers in the private sector, for anyone in a decision-making and policy-making position. And that is particularly, to my mind, true in the financial services sector, whereas you noted some of the history around discriminatory lending, but obviously, as you know, it goes even further back than that in the housing market, back to redlining and things like that. So I absolutely think
does the lack of diversity at financial institutions means they're more likely to miss things that matter?
I think a lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion in any institution means that they are likely to miss important things.
If you are confirmed, then what would you do to help diversify financial institutions?
Well, I mean, I would say that this administration has put a high priority on diversity, equity, and inclusion, both within the agencies, but also trying to work with the private sector. And so I would be happy to talk with you in your office if you have ideas about that. I'm happy to engage with the private sector to hear what they're doing, and to talk with the folks at Treasury to hear.
We would welcome that. Yes. We've already had these discussions with Secretary Yellen and the Undersecretary, and I hope we can do so with you as well. Finally, in 2018, I led the effort to pass the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, which passed Congress unanimously. One section of that bill requires the Treasury Secretary to promote anti-trafficking policies at the international financial institutions such as integrating anti-trafficking interventions into projects or requiring government action against trafficking as a condition of making laws. Ms. Latatortu, will you commit to advance anti-trafficking efforts of the multilateral development banks and regularly brief my staff on your work there?
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for raising this very important act, which is very important to our work in supporting the multilateral development banks. The United States has consistently put pressure on these development banks to comply with this act, which of course protects the most vulnerable and disadvantaged people, and I would be very pleased to continue to engage with you on their progress in this regard, Senator.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, one last brief question. We have to ensure that our financial regulators identify and interdict the proceeds of trafficking and help trafficking survivors repair their credit in cases where their identities were stolen and abused by their traffickers. So I want to ask you again, Ms. Latatortu and Mr. Steele in this case as well, will you commit to using the tools of the Treasury Department to address these issues?
Senator, yes, the Treasury Department has a range of tools across departments, and I look forward to working with my colleagues across all of the Treasury Department in this regard.
I do, Senator.
Thank you.